that in there so everyone could be, have their own name.
Wow. Is there a John Reynolds the Fourth?
No, there's a lot of pressure to do that. If I did that, I felt like my son was going to sound like he was a pope. So I just, I went without it. So, yeah, he got Charles as a middle name, but no, we went with Brody instead. How are you?
I'm okay, although I have to admit I was pretty freaked out this morning with all this Corona thing.
Yeah.
I was in quarantine for 2 weeks, in isolation for 2 weeks, because I was in the States, and when I flew home, everybody flying into Israel was required to self-quarantine for 2 weeks. So that was until last Wednesday. So, and I've basically been not going out, just once I went to our little grocery store and got stuff. I'm not going to see my family, my grandchildren, nobody. I'm really, really keeping to myself. And then today I had a problem with the internet, and this person had to come into my house. And I flipped out. I totally flipped out, but I have to have internet, right? He had to change the router. So he was here and he was working, and I'm like, he wanted to know if he could go in on the other computer. I said, I'd rather you wouldn't. And so I went in with it, and after he left, I rubbed everything down with the alcohol wipes and everything. And then you know what happened? He came back.
Oh.
He had to come twice because he saw that the problem was the router, and he brought me a new router. So I'm just sort of getting over, and I'm flipped out about the fact that I'm flipped out about a person coming into my house. How sick is that?
No, we were watching TV last night, and I'm like, not one of these people on the show is interacting with people right now. The whole show is based on people hanging out, and I'm like, they're all just in their houses now. That's kind of the funny thing about this, is that everyone is just home. They're just, not doing anything. And so that's been the craziest part of this. Is going food shopping is completely anxiety ridden for me. And that is, it's terrifying. But, other than that, I'm having a great time being quarantined. So,
I have never been so busy. I'm working so much. I get up in the morning, I let myself sleep in until 7, and then my day starts, and I'm going until 11 p.m. and midnight, doing Zooms, doing tutorials, making activities for my own students, and teaching teachers in Israel how to do this distance teaching thing. And it's just nonstop.
Yep. It's a lot. So I think I could work even more now, because I always want to work. I never want to stop working. But it's so convenient now because it's just in my house. I don't have to, there's no being at school. And without the, teachers, I've read people talk about teachers suffering from this thing called decision making. Is it decision fatigue? Where you just are constantly answering questions from students. And when I'm in my room in my high school, it's never empty. There's always 20 to 30 kids in there at any given time. They're just hanging out, and they have 9,000 questions about everything conceivable, and they're asking at the same time as everyone else. So it's this kind of crazy atmosphere to be a part of. And then, so when I'm not a part of that, it's I'm getting way more work done and just doing a lot more stuff in general. So it's really fascinating.
Don't your kids get in the way?
My own kids, a little bit. My daughter is really sociable, so she's kind of she's having the hardest time figuring out what to do. So she's been baking. Yesterday she tried to fly a kite out of her window, which was weird, but she did it because there's tin foil coming down my steps because she tried to make some kind of path for ping pong balls to go down, and it's like, it looks like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory in here right now. But the boy is, my son, this is the greatest thing that ever happened to him, because he gets to be like on, it's like there's a reason to be on technology, to like meet with his friends and like be on the
He
computer.
likes that. Is he gaming with his friends?
He's like, yeah, and it's like, he's like, I don't have to bathe anymore. It's like, no, you still have to bathe. So that's important. Yeah. So how are you dealing with this stuff right now? Like, what?
I'll get into that in a minute. I just want to say the people that have joined us, there's 8 of us here now. You're welcome to open up your cameras and join us here online. And if you have any trouble, check your mics. If you have any trouble, you might want to go in and go out again. Yusuf writes that he's having some trouble. But anyway, so how are we dealing with it? Every few days, there's a new. Hi, Dion. In Israel, I'm talking from Israel, and CJ is talking from Philadelphia, and we're in touch on Facebook. And I suggested to him that he's a teacher and I'm a teacher, and I suggested that we just have a live chat and talk about how the different places are handling the whole situation differently. Did you put the Zoom in your feed, CJ?
I did, yeah.
Okay, great. Is that how people are getting in? Dion, is that how you got in here? Through his feed?
I got onto Facebook this morning and Real Rap with Reynolds.
Okay, great. Isn't he great? Isn't he amazing? I can't believe I'm meeting him. So anyway, so in Israel, like every few days, there's another clamp down. It's like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So at first it was like I came back and I'm in quarantine, but everybody else was free to roam around. And then I was counting down the days, and I did a vlog every day for my Corona quarantine log, like every day counting down till I get out. And then at some point I realized by the time I can get out, there's no place to get out to, because everybody else is inside and everything is closing. So at first, like theaters started closing and schools closed and public transportation cut down. And now public transportation is totally closed down, I think. And it just keeps getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And there's a big problem here with 2 populations in Israel. One population is the Arab population, where in the Palestinian villages, they're like taking it less seriously, as in many of the villages. I don't know if all of them. So that's one area. And the other area is the ultra Orthodox, who are just not listening to it all and having weddings and big parties, and all these things are still going on. And they're all going outside in the streets, and the police are starting to clamp down on this. And there's even a fine if somebody's been diagnosed with COVID and they're caught outside, they get a 5,000 shekel fine slapped on them. And there's also, they're following you on your phone. If you've been diagnosed with COVID, they follow you to see where you've been. And now, we're not supposed to walk any further than 100 meters away from our house. So I live in an urban area, in a rural area, and like there's no COVID police around here that are going to stop me. I mean, I could just go walk in the fields and that's not a problem. But in the cities, like people who are used to jogging, they can't jog anymore along the beach. They have to jog around the block like 30 times or whatever. Yeah. And just today, we heard that the Minister of Health is suggesting that school might be closed for the rest of the semester. And that hasn't been announced officially yet, but like I said, each time it's like.
Yeah.
So how's it by you guys in Philadelphia?
So I can start. Because it's an urban area, there's like, I live in a really weird sort of neighborhood where we moved into a neighborhood that was tough for a reason. And we moved here with a whole bunch of our friends. There's like 50 of us that like all live in the same neighborhood, to just try and be good neighbors. But what comes with that is like a lot of people that just seem uninformed, that are like, don't care. And so there's folks just out all the time. There's like gangs of kids riding bikes all over the neighborhood and playing basketball. And it's like,
Still?
yeah.
Wow.
So this is something, so they have a hotline now that you're supposed to call if this happens. But for us, it's like, look, I don't try to underplay any of this, and I don't try to overplay either. So I watch very select news from very select sources, and I check in once a day, and that's it. So I keep an eye on like the number of cases in New Jersey, because New Jersey, I actually live in New Jersey, which is I'm like right outside of Philadelphia. I'm pointing at it like you can see Philadelphia over there, but Philadelphia's right there.
Oh, so you live in New Jersey?
I live in Jersey, like right over the.
Oh, I didn't realize.
So,
Okay.
and we are the number 2 most infected state in the United States right now. So, but it's like, I could freak out about that, or I could just not. So I'm choosing 2 things. One is, Mr. Rogers always used to say, the television guy, would say, in times of trouble, look for the helpers. So that's something I've been really like trying to keep an eye on, is like when the news is happening and the reporter is standing there and all the craziness is happening, I literally like look for people in the background that are helping. Mm-hmm. And that's been one thing for me that keeps me going. And look, this has been a rough, not just the school year, but the last 4 school years have been really, really difficult, where like, you know, our principal stepped down this year, the vice principal stepped down this year. There's like all these huge administration changes happening. So it's like some time off where I'm working from home and I'm getting to be with my kids. Like I said before, I could work all the time. So this is time for me to just sort of like, you know, work on my business and get things ready for school and connect with students in new ways and look at technology.
But school, what is school anymore? And is this going to change the paradigm of school forever?
I hope it does, but I hope in a really positive way that it does. I don't think we go from brick and mortar schools to online schools at all. Like, I don't think that that's going to be the case. I think folks are seeing the need for real teachers with their students. I think that it's being seen as it's a craft, it's a skill. Like to be able to make something interesting, to create engagement in something isn't just something anybody can do. And so I think I'm hoping that is something that changes. But yeah, how's everyone else kind of seeing that right now?
Yeah, where are you all from? We have Dion and somebody named Laptop.
Hi, I'm Dion. I'm in Savannah, Tennessee, and we are at the Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee border, up 20 miles. Okay. And it's a very small town, 28,000 in the community. But Mr. Reynolds, exact same thing happening here in the town, even though I'm in a little neighborhood. There's little groups of kids going around. Walmart is really the main place where people go and gather. And I just don't think they're taking it seriously. In regards to school, we were told the week before spring break, stop giving assignments. A plan will be made when we return. So we are awaiting a plan. Meanwhile, they're still feeding lunches. The bus drivers are dropping off lunches at locations, and we're a very poor rural area. We're waiting. So no school, which has been actually quite nice for me, because usually
for how long?
Don't know.
No, how long have you been out of school already?
Oh gosh, 23rd or so of March.
Wow.
No, 18th, 19th, I don't know. It's all running together.
Yeah.
A long time. But
and
we're out until the 24th.
You haven't done any distance teaching?
I did for the first week, but then was told to stop because I think the district was getting stressed out because students don't have the right equipment and the regular things that go on for parents.
Do your students not all have smartphones?
When I polled them, we were asked to poll before I left, and every single one of my students has internet. So,
so we're running into an issue where students might have internet and they might have devices, but there's not enough for everyone. And so like to do an assignment on a phone isn't always enough. So they'll have issues where there's 5 kids in a household with one computer. So if we were initially giving 45 to 60 minutes of work a day per class, that's way more actual written work than I give in a day anyway. So it was like trying to figure that out and coordinate with families, and then let the school know, like, look, I'm in communication with these families. These are the sort of problems that we're running into. We're not really sure how to deal with it. What's your suggestion? So then ours became 10 to 15 minutes a day per class for work. And I'm only giving assignments 2 days a week. So every Tuesday and Thursday, I'm required to submit an assignment for my students, and I'm required to allow any late work that comes in. And all that's fine with me.
I gave about 25 minutes a day is all I had given. Read and listen to the audio video that I made one day, the next day answer the questions. And then I did a couple of Zooms, and believe it or not, only 5 or 6 people joined out of my 80 students.
Yeah.
What grades do you teach?
10th grade English, 10th grade.
Ah, okay.
And two of my classes are honors.
I've had a problem getting students on also.
I did do it at 11 a.m. thinking it was too early, so then we did it at noon. And then I just did it for, let's open up, have everybody just join in and have fun talking to one another. And that was great fun, but then they're just sleeping all day, staying up all night is what I'm hearing.
Which look, is aggravating, but to be honest with you, it's exactly what I would be doing when I was in high school. Like, I was not a go-getter in high school. Like that part of me didn't come alive till years afterwards. So I kind of get it. And I think a lot of my students are sort of like calling the bluff of the school. They're like, the rest of Philadelphia has done away with distance learning for the time being until something has been figured out. We are one of the only school, we're the only school I know of, and there has to be more, but we're the only school I know of that's still trying to do this model. And I don't know how successful we're being with it, but it's wild that's like still like, the kids are like, no, none of my friends are doing work, so I'm not going to do it. And you're not going to hold me accountable. And it's like, no, they really are. Like, I'm really putting zeros in when you're not doing stuff.
So what kind of work are you giving them?
I'm using a lot of online stuff. I'm using Scholastic a lot. And I'm using stuff in the New York Times. So it'll be like, read this short passage. So what I essentially want them to do every single day is read for a little bit, write for a little bit, and critically think for a little bit. That's it. So it's really about trimming the fat for me and saying, what do I want to make sure you're doing? How do I make this as accessible and as engaging as possible? And then I've been making little videos every day that I send out to my students that are like, essentially what I do on YouTube, but like just for my kids, that are 3 minutes long. And then I just send those along with them. And really that's more than anything is to one, help with students that have IEPs that are having a hard time, like just reading directions or trying to figure out what I want. And then 2, it's trying to make something weirdly engaging that my students will wonder, like, what's Reynolds doing? Like, what's he going to do today? So today's video is me wearing a robe and eating cookie dough. And I'm going to talk about things I've been doing. And because I've really been eating a lot of cookie dough lately.
And wait a minute, what were they supposed to do with you in a bathrobe eating cookie dough?
So I just show up and give announcements. So the video is like me giving announcements, me giving directions and telling what we're going to do. But the engagement part, so I'm real big on hooks in my class. So like I'll do anything to hook kids. So it could be me playing music, but not really playing music in the beginning of my room. Me yelling through a megaphone, me blowing bubbles, me doing I think that's where that clowning piece that we connected over really comes into play, because it's like, I don't care what hooks you, so long as you're hooked. And then it's like, if I can trick you into some education along the way, awesome.
So what kind of things are you having them do though?
So they're reading articles, they're annotating articles, they're answering comprehension questions, they're journaling. So I'll have like a journal that connects to like, what are we doing? So we read a short story recently, which is like a short story that I think every 9th grade American reads, called After 20 Years. And
oh, really? You read After 20 Years also?
Yep. And so we read that, and then I gave them the audio for it. I made a video about it, and then I had questions like, what was the time that someone let you down? What was a time that what are qualities of that a best friend, like who's your best friend and what qualities make them your best friend? Like things like that. So you're connecting with the reading, you're reading the story, there's an audio version if you need it, and then there's just questions based on that. And to me, that's like good enough. And the reason it's good enough is because we're in unprecedented times. Like who in living memory can like, there's no one alive that's ever dealt with this before that I know of, unless you were around like in 1918 when the Spanish flu hit
and then the internet didn't work so well. No.
And this is the first time anyone's ever had to figure this out, right? Like if this was happening in 1989, it would be terrible.
Let me tell you something. It's the first time the world is having to figure it out. But living where I do, for those of you who don't know me, I live in Israel, and I live right on the border with the Gaza Strip. And we have, like, some places have snow days. Well, we have war days. So we have days where we have escalations of rocket fire, and we're out of school for a day or two. The longest time we've been out in the past 5 years has been 3 days. But 5 years ago, we had a war all summer, and our kids are used to being at home and out of the framework. The thing is, when you've got a war day, you're not going to start. None of the kids want to do any work when that shit's going on, because you're busy listening for the incoming rocket warning and running back and forth to the safe room. And even if you have say a computer in your safe room, you can't concentrate with what's going on. Here, it's like something, it's also hard to concentrate, I think, because like there's so much news going on. It's so weird. It's just turned everybody's life upside down. But on the other hand, it's the whole world. And it's not as if we have an enemy that's doing something to us that we have to be aware of incoming danger or something. Yeah. But our kids are used to the fact that of distance connection with their peers during certain periods of time when they should be in school.
Yeah. What about the rest of you? Are you thinking or wondering anything, or how are you doing?
We have a few people from Israel and a few people from the States. And there's Yusuf, who I don't know where you're from, but anybody who wants to jump in and say something and share something is more than welcome to open their mics, open their videos, their cameras, and join us.
Hello, guys.
Hey, how are you, man?
Hi, Yusuf. Where are you from?
Fine. I'm from Morocco.
Morocco.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes.
And what is the educational system in Morocco doing with this?
Well, it's good, but while in this distance learning, we're suffering a lot. Of course, using Zoom isn't a good idea. We're just teaching using WhatsApp. I know it's informal one, but we just use it because the internet speed is very low.
So you send lessons through WhatsApp?
Yes, and we use like audios to communicate with our students.
Mm-hmm. So like you record yourself and send them audio. Are you an English teacher?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so you send them audio files and have them do stuff with it and respond to you in the WhatsApp also?
Yes, and most of the time we depend on their students' book. Just tell them to open like a page.
Oh, we're losing you. I can't hear. Oh, Yusuf, hang on. You're muted. Wait a minute.
Oh,
let me.
Yeah, you got muted on accident.
Okay, sorry, we didn't hear that last sentence of yours, Yusuf.
Well, we say most of the time we use like WhatsApp or just this informal one.
So is anybody else having trouble?
Because of course we can't use that Zoom.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
is anybody else having trouble hearing Yusuf, or is it just me?
No, yeah, that's cutting out a little bit. But So
basically they're working with their books and back and forthing over WhatsApp.
How are they submitting work then using, so if they have like a student book, how are they submitting work using that?
Just oral work, Yusuf? Is that what they're doing? Are they doing just oral work? Just oral work in their book?
No, not actually oral work. We just send them like some worksheet to do it at home.
Okay.
And how do you get the work back? Or don't you get the work back?
Just send them to me in private, and I correct them and I share it in the group. That's all I do for them.
What, they take a picture of it?
Yes, that's it. To just take a picture and send it to me in private.
Okay, I see Rafi wrote here, he's on PC with no camera or microphone. He'd like to hear how more about how everyone's teaching online. I've been sending lessons to my students using Google Classroom. Google Classroom is a good option. I'm also using Google Classroom with my kids, but most of the people and most of the teachers in my school aren't on it, so they're not used to that at all.
No, I had to learn how to use it. I had zero idea how to use it because my students don't all have devices. So like, because I teach 9th grade, they are, and it's English. So I don't, like we're reading books all the time. And so I can get away without it.
Yeah.
That's a huge learning curve of me trying to figure out how to use Google Classroom. And I've sent the wrong thing several times. I've sent the answers on accident one time. Like, it's been like.
That's why they like you so much, CJ.
It is not perfect over here. So. Yeah.
Well, I've been using Google Classroom for the last couple of years, really just for writing and bell work, but I'm thankful for it now because it's just really easy for the kids to use it. Our school does not use it though, so that makes it more challenging. Yeah,
it definitely. So were your students already all connected on Google Classroom also then?
Yes, we had super duper duper old little computers that I switched over to Chromebooks for my classroom.
Okay.
And that was their bell work. Every day would come in and do a little video, then write some sort of little writing assignment. And so they were already familiar with it. And that's how I did my tests. I would post assignments through it. They're just used to it, but they're still not doing it.
Not doing it. So it doesn't matter how you're sending it.
They're not doing it.
They're not doing it.
But now they're not required to do it. And now we're wondering if schools even are going to come back. It sounds like they're not going to more than likely come back at all.
Well,
so
now
what happens?
Ended the quarantine in the U.S. until the end of April. So,
right.
I mean, it's like some folks are done in May. Like, I mean, so yeah. Anyone else?
Sarah writes in that in 1967, she was in high school in Israel. They had a war in June, but were out of school for about 20 days, but no one even thought of learning then. There was no internet. And Rafi writes that his school is very technologically advanced. All the kids have iPads. In the first week, almost everyone did the assignments, but this week, not so much. So I've been sending assignments using Google Forms, and there's actually a lot of options that you could build into Google Forms that work, that the kids can do on their phone. They just like click in and they can, do short answers, and you can embed a video there and have them answer that way. And now, right, I'm actually the thing that I like about using Google Classroom is that I made a whole bunch of grammar activities, which sadly is what my students said that they wanted when I met with them last week on Zoom. They said, we want grammar, which I hate teaching and I hate doing, but okay, that's what they want. They're more likely to do it if I'm giving them something they want, we think, right? So I made a whole bunch of Google Forms, and the students can choose. Each week they have to choose one thing, that's all. So they choose one thing, and I put them on Google Classroom, so they go in there, and from there they can choose what it is that they want. And that's, in that way, it's convenient for me to have them in Google Classroom. But you could also make a Google site and put all the things there and have them choose from there. Because if you just send all these links out on WhatsApp, they'll just get lost. Sarah says, Adele, the assignment you gave and I joined of having people from On the Border Facebook group to ask questions and our 11th grade kids writing answers was very good, a real life assignment. I think the students really liked it. Sarah, what are you talking about? When did I do that? I am so senile. I like shoot things out there and totally forget that I've done them. Sarah, when was this from? I don't know what she's talking about. Well, I'll see if she, and Amanda Davis writes, thankfully we'd, oh, she says 6 years ago. Thanks a lot. Okay, well, I'm glad it's useful. I'll have to look it up and maybe shoot that out again. Amanda Davis writes, we'd already been in Google Classroom, but I teach special education and have no idea how the kids will do with work completion. We're starting tomorrow. I'm doing a screencast on Hippo video and then making it an Edpuzzle. Edpuzzle's really good. Do you guys know Edpuzzle?
No, I've not used it.
Edpuzzle is something where you put a video in there and then you plant questions in. And then every so often it stops and they have to answer the questions.
Okay.
So that's useful.
Yeah, I think
My favorite
special education. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to, one of the teachers at our school, her class had to pick from lists of chores, and the student had to clean their closet in video and take a picture of it. That was assignment for one day. There are a whole bunch of different fun things that were actually
what age
realistic.
are we talking?
Kept them on a schedule. High school.
High school.
It was probably getting them up and going for the day. But
Wow.
had to organize a cabinet. Do their own laundry one day. It was actually just a lot of life skills.
I like that.
The young lady was frustrated with it, but I thought it was fabulous.
I like it. And for us, for English as foreign language, that would be great.
You know, when I think about, so we started homeschooling our kids this year because my son has a lot of special needs that like our school just wasn't able to meet, to put it nicely. So we've had to reimagine what education looked like in our own house, right? So we were talking about on our live feed that we do on YouTube last night, this difference between like homeschooling and computer-based instruction, which is what we are doing as teachers now, and how homeschooling is really us turning everything into a lesson. It is like the reason that like right now we're like talking about pollen and bees and butterflies and compost and growing seeds. And when my daughter does baking, it's like we turn it into a math lesson. Like everything potentially becomes this learning experience, but you're just looking at real world scenarios. So like writing is, right now my kids listen to this podcast called 6 Minutes, and it's 6 minutes long, and it's this kind of like, it kind of seems like it's like Jason Bourne, but like for kids. And it's this narrative that they tell, but then my kids create comic books out of that narrative. So they then like create like a visual, and we bought them like these comic books that are blank, and they can fill in the dialogue and draw pictures and stuff. So it's really just taking the stuff that we're normally doing and turning it into a lesson. And I think the tricky part for us as educators now is like, I don't know how much of that is possible. So I'm hearing that a little bit in like clean your closet, but like, how could you turn that into something would be really fun and really interesting to think about. And one of the things I'm really enjoying about this time is, one, it is aggravating, right? It's aggravating to try and figure out all of these lessons, but also it's kind of exciting. It kind of feels like the Wild West, where it's like, no, we can, there's this, I love autonomy. I love being able to do whatever I want. And that's been really fun to kind of dream up, like, what could this look like going forward is exciting. You know, but I
on the other hand, in Israel, we have high stakes exams at the end of the 11th and 12th grade.
We do too, but ours are now canceled, thankfully.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Ours are now canceled for the year.
Yours are what?
They're now canceled.
So, I don't know what they're going to do in Israel, because if you cancel the exams, then this is what the universities accept entrance on. We don't have SATs and PSATs. We have the matriculations, and then they did do some sort of psychometric exam afterwards. But in Israel, we have a big gap between the end of high school and the beginning of university, because we have 2 to 3 years of army in the middle, and sometimes a gap year of, you know, traveling around the world, going to find yourself and whatever. So they really depend a lot. You like that idea, CJ?
You're like, find yourself or whatever. And I'm like, yeah,
go find yourself.
Yeah.
So we have kids that finish high school, and until they get to university, it takes like 4, 5, sometimes even more years than that. And they really put a lot of emphasis on the grades that they got when they were in high school. And we don't know if we can cancel those exams. Like, we're just waiting because nobody knows what's happening. Ashley, I see you sitting there and nodding a lot. And do you have anything to add to this conversation?
Got called out by the teacher.
I know, right?
In a good way.
Should turn my camera off and hide.
Where are you from?
No,
Where do you live?
I'm from the U.S. I'm in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm laughing about Reynolds. You said it's the Wild West, and it totally is. But I like it too. Like, I like the challenge, and I like being able to figure out, okay, well, in a classroom I would do it this way, but how do you do that now? And the big the challenge that my students are having is they're overloaded. I think a lot of teachers are trying to keep the same pace and the same rigor and the same everything they've done for the past 30 years. And they're just loading it on the kids. So we actually had to have our admin finally had to pull some research and be like, no, like 30 minutes total per class per day. And, you know, kind of rein people in a little bit because they were getting a little crazy. But other than that, I think the kids have adjusted fairly well.
Yeah, I think
my kids seem happy. I talked to them on Zoom, and they seem pretty happy.
So my guys are a mix. I mean, when I do Zoom calls, so every day I do office hours online where I'm just on Google Hangout, and if you show up, then you show up. If you don't, whatever. But those conversations have been really interesting because it's like there are some students that are just stuck in the house. They hate it. They don't know what to do with themselves. And especially if you're living in Philly and you're living in a row home, it's not like you can go out anywhere. So it's that piece kind of also, or guys that are like, look, when I'm in school mode, but now at home, and then my mom goes to work all day and I'm home by myself. There's not like the push from the teachers. All that consistency is not there. And I mean, you all know what it's like. Like when you're sitting at home, you're like, you eat whenever you want, you go to bed whenever you want, you wake up whenever you want. Maybe you work out, maybe you don't. Like that all gets real trick. It's almost like too much freedom unless you have a real schedule. And when you're young, I don't know that all students have the capacity to do that naturally. So I know for me, it's like my wife and I like sort of holding one another accountable. Otherwise, you know, we keep eating dinner at 9 o'clock every night, and then I go to bed at midnight, and then I get up whenever the hell I want. And so it's been trying to figure that stuff out. But I think kids have been extremely adaptable to all this stuff. So
as long as they're getting held accountable by the teachers in total and the district, but everybody's in flux and nobody knows what's going on, so nothing's getting done.
Yep.
Yeah. Amanda, do you want to tell us about the quarantine bingo that you're doing? Is Amanda here? I don't know if she has a mic. Yeah, she has a mic and it's open.
Yep, I tried. Can you hear me?
Bingo.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Cool. So yeah, I made like a quarantine bingo sheet. The middle is make a schedule because I teach special ed and they need structure big time. And then some of them are like clean your room, but some of them are like cook with your mom. You know, it's very fluctuating and they have kind of say in what they can do. So it kind of takes away from the 8 classes that they have. A little more fun, a little bit less sit down and read because frankly, some of my kids can't read that great. So I'm trying to make them feel a little more successful.
Mm-hmm. Sounds
That's
great.
awesome.
Can you share it with us here? Can you upload the file? Is it digital? It must be digital, otherwise you wouldn't get it.
I can try.
Yeah, you can add a file here in the chat.
Cool,
That would be cool.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have anything to say about this? Samantha's iPhone or Samantha, whichever wants to say.
I'm real good with awkward silences too, because I teach 9th grade literature. So,
I do.
Go ahead.
What is everyone doing with their possible assistants or people that aren't actually teaching? I had a really bad first year. It's my first year. I started in November, and my class was dissolved in the middle of February because it was just a really crappy learning environment. So now I'm an assistant to my team, but none of my team knows what we're doing. So I'm supposed to prove that I'm working from home, but I'm not involved with any of my students either, because none of my team wants to share their class with me because I'm no longer a teacher ish. And I don't know, like, I want to be helpful and I want to do everything that I possibly can. And I'm like throwing things out there and everybody's just kind of like, go away, we don't know what's going on. And I'm just kind of like, okay. So I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to make them feel supported, and yet I feel supported at the same time.
Are you you're a new teacher?
Yes, this is my first year.
When did you finish teacher's school? College?
I did what's called lateral entry. I busted my rear end and I did 95 credits over last summer. And then I got a job at the very end of October with my school district.
So you must have a whole bunch of ideas, especially digital things, that the other teachers in your school aren't necessarily on top of. And I'll bet you could help them a lot with that, to think of ideas of ways that you can engage kids digitally.
I want to, but nobody really wants to talk to me because I went to college online. And a lot of people, obviously, online college is not exactly the most respected college in the world, but it did prepare me for what is sort of happening, but I'm at the elementary level. And the big thing right now is the inequity that is being shined upon right now. And everybody's like, oh my God, nobody has digital resources. Mm-hmm. And our district's trying really hard to roll it out. Spectrum's like, call us if you need internet. We're trying to figure out how we can pass out Chromebooks and be one-to-one and everything along those lines. But there's just not the implementation that needs to be there. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the hardest part with everybody, especially nationwide and worldwide, mm-hmm. is that, yeah, it's great that we have the internet and we can all Zoom, but there's not the structure. As we've all pointed out, we sleep till noon, we can do whatever we want. Or some of them, I mean, we got an email from the district today about if you're going to leave your kid at home, they have to be this old. Like people are just kind of, my school's not babysitting my kid anymore, I got to go to work. Because our essential employees, I don't know what it is for you in Israel, but here it's people that work at McDonald's, and it's people that work in grocery stores, and it's people that they don't, they might not have insurance, they might not have sick pay, they might not have anything. And literally the fact that their kids go to school 7.5, 8 hours a day is important. And now that they're not, they have to choose, do I keep my job, mm-hmm. or do I go and, or do I stay home and I take care of my kids? Yep. And they're closing down daycare.
Big problem here too. Another problem is all these people that are being laid off. Like, I'm a counselor for most of my work. I'm a teacher trainer for 3 days a week, and I teach one class. So I'm still getting paid for that one class, I think maybe 70%. They cut teachers' pay back, I think, to 70%. But as a counselor, I've been put out on vacation, and I am working my butt off on my vacation because I think it's important.
Yeah.
But the inspectors and the counselors aren't getting paid. We're like using up vacation days, and we're in a good place. We know that when this thing is over, they will need the teachers and the teacher trainers and the inspectors and everything. There's people who are losing their jobs, and they don't know if they're going to have them waiting there when this is over. Yeah. We as teachers have somewhat of a privilege in that sense.
So I think when I'm thinking about this, so you teach elementary. What grades? What grade were you teaching?
5th grade.
Like all subjects? Is it like a gen ed class, or is it okay?
Yeah.
So do you have access? Are those students using Google Classroom, or how are they?
They are, yes, but I'm not involved. I've asked to be involved into their Google Classrooms, but none of my team has shared any of that information.
Okay.
Have you sent them work? Like sent them ideas? Hey, look, you could do this with the kids.
I haven't gotten that vibe that that's a good place for me to be. I'm pretty good at people reading, and right now the stress level is really, really high. Our district doesn't know what we're doing yet. So we don't know if we're grading, if we're not grading. Everything's been supplemental. Next week is our spring break, and we are not expected to work next week. So it's interesting.
Can you see Amanda's comment? It looks interesting. She says all students with IEP 504s, which I don't know what that is, but you do. We're split up between the teachers and aides, and we're contacting our kids at least once a week. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Take care of you doing that.
504s are students that require specialized services that are like, have some sort of learning disability that they're dealing with, and that's their individual plan for that. So I think when we're talking about like trying to figure out where do we fit in all of this, I think we make this space for where we are going to fit, right? So like if I was like a co-teacher or an aide in the classroom, and I didn't have that like immediate interaction, because I know like my co-teacher keeps reaching out to me, but it feels like another step that I have to do to create a lesson, to send it to you, to get your approval, to get it back, to implement those changes, then to upload it. It's like another thing. So what we've been sort of working out is, I said, I will create the lesson, and it's going to be, I mean, it is, for any IEP, it is good enough. Because I'm just thinking about that on the front end, but then I'm asking her to like reach out to particular students that aren't handing in the work, that aren't getting stuff done, that we already know that like this, I could name 10 students off the top of my head that I already know they're having a hard time with this. Like they're trying to figure out the directions. They're trying to figure out where do they write their name. They're trying to figure out how do you download a Google Doc. And so could you get information on some of those students, like reach out to your admin, say, hey, look, I have an idea in place. I think I would be useful to contact these students once a day, once a week, to make sure that they're on point, that they are emotionally okay, that they are doing the work, that they're feeling cared for. Because I think especially in this time, when we look at students that already don't get looked at enough in school, right? So like on my channel, I'm always talking about like 1, 2, and 3 students. So number 1 being the kid that is like always, they're the best. That's the kid that's already emailing you and was like, oh, I got done my online work early. Do you have a little bit of extra work I can do at home? That they're like, they're probably creating their own curriculum right now. Number 3 kid is the kid that is like always a nightmare in class, and once they are a black hole of attention all the time. And then that number 2 kid that no one is really thinking about, that sits quietly in their chair and is silently suffering or doesn't really know what's going on in class. How can we meet the needs of those students, especially during this time where they might be feeling just that way at home, that they're uncared for and unwanted and no one's really noticing them? So maybe identifying some of those students and then reaching out to admin and saying, hey, I'd like contact information for these kids, and I want to communicate with them. I want to help them figure this out, that even when you had your class, who were those students that were the students that were really in need? And then how can you create something for them that is just an aid to them, that you're being a willing body that, could help those students out. And so, and then that's a way to just go around those other teachers. Like if they don't want your help, if they're already feeling not enough, it's like, well then, all right, this is education's about the kids anyway. So like, how can I directly impact children? And that's where my mind would be. I would start thinking.
Yeah, but I want a job next year. I'm still waiting to find out if I'm going to have my contract extended into next year, because I have a terminating contract. Okay. So I don't know if I even have a job next year right now, and I'm like minorly freaking out. So
in my district,
really
everybody is. There's only the few people who have tenure are automatically there. Otherwise, everybody is hired each year. Every year.
Which is such a bizarre.
It is.
Anyway, but I think so. In that space, I'm thinking if I'm going to hire someone back, how do they make something from nothing? How, like, when this crazy pandemic takes place, when all this, like, no one knows what they're doing, you were the one that found a way to make sure students were still learning and making learning meaningful and engaging and making sure kids were being looked after. I think that is a move that, like, is not, the school's not going to come up with that for you maybe, but how can you figure out ways to sort of, like, Wild West that situation is the move. So, because our school's asking us to do
I agree with that.
Yeah,
That makes a lot
there's
of
like
sense.
a dozen things I'm being asked to do right now that I don't do because I just don't think they're important. And I don't recommend other people do that. This is kind of my move at school, is like, when I don't think a meeting was important the other day on Zoom, I just left. And I sent everyone a nice email and said, look, I had to meet with students after that. But if you're making it about kids, then that's always the win. But it takes some figuring out to figure out, like, what would that actually look like.
Mm-hmm. That's very sound advice.
So
and, like, shame on those teachers for not wanting your help.
100%.
Like, that's ridiculous. Like, no one knows what they're doing. It takes a village. It's like, why would you not want someone else's input and help?
I think it gets a little overwhelming when you have a person who's good with technology and somebody who's not, and a person who's been on campus for decades and somebody who's not. I think there's a lot of push and shoving going on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, does anybody who hasn't said anything want to chirp up?
Nothing's off the table. There's a baby in here now. Okay. And a cat. So
I know. Sorry.
Well, I found this very interesting. I don't know about everybody else. I guess everybody who stayed does as well.
So look, going forward, if anyone has anything to say, that's great. But and I'd be happy to hear it. But if you need anything, reach out, right? So, like, our Facebook group that we run, Real Rapid Reynolds Teacher Talk, is a resource. If you want to email me, like, I have way more time to do emails than I normally do. So, like, I don't want people to go away feeling like they are in this alone or that they're not really sure what to do. Just reach out and I'd be more than happy to help anybody else.
And the amazing thing is, look, this is like everybody's in the same boat. We've got Israel here, we've got the States, we've got Morocco. Do we have anybody from any other country here? Like, this is, teachers around the world are experiencing the same black hole of nothingness, of now go find your way. Nobody has a map for this. You got to make up your own maps.
Yeah.
I think it's just such a waiting game, and I'm a fix-it person, and not being able to fix it and having to wait. And I'm also okay being an Indian, and I need the chiefs to tell me what to do, and then I'll just run with it. But this waiting, I'll just go paint the house some more and weed.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, my house has never been cleaner than it is right now. There's not a weed in
I said that the other day.
CJ, you could come to my house and help me out here, because I haven't had a minute to do anything.
Let's be clear.
For my house. Your
my
wife's
wife's sitting over here. My wife's going, let's be clear about who's doing the cleaning. She doesn't.
Busted.
It's not CJ.
I'm in a meeting right now.
Has anybody's district decided how much learning that the students need to do? Because I think that's a big thing that we're waiting on. Because we had our meeting and we talked about it, and we just don't know how much learning and how much engagement we're supposed to be giving the kids. I think it would be great if there was, like, some, international, like, hey, K through 5, you only have to do 3 hours of work a week. And then, middle school has to do 6 and high school needs to do 10. And I think that's the hard part too with the uncharted territory, is that, as she said, we're all waiting. All right, well, what do you want us to do in order for us to actually do it? you know, because I can't imagine any of us trying to sit in front of our laptop for 7 hours a day with our own kids at home.
Oh God, no.
Right. Right.
I mean,
Your son's
as
agreeing
cute as
with
he
you.
is, he's a bit of a distraction, and I still need to put him down for naps and change diapers. But they haven't decided what we're doing, and I think that's what our biggest thing.
So in Israel, it's even more of a mess because every school decides. It's not even about districts. It's each school decides how much work each teacher should be giving the classes.
So our school's figuring out that independently as well, but the district is kind of going a different way. I think the trickiest part with that question is that the folks that make those decisions are largely not educators. It's like a politician, or it's somebody that like read a lot of books on education, or they have a doctorate in education, but they're not actually educators. And so I think that for right now, the interesting thing to me has been that I'm doing what I want, and I know my students, I know the curriculum, I know what's best for them, and me communicating with my community of educators that I choose to be a part of at my school, us sort of figuring that out together and trying to help kids like bridge the gap. So I have a number of students that are already failing for the year, going into this last part of the school year. And so it's like, how do I help those guys maximize this time to the best of their ability to actually do well and pass the year? How do I help students that are in their senior year of high school that are freaking out about the future to just be cool? Like, let's figure this out together. So I have a call with a student today that hasn't been doing any work at home. And I said, it's not a big deal. Let's just do a call. I'll help you through it. We'll help come up with a plan and then execute it. And so even when they do eventually come up with some scheme that they come up with to handle this, I just think is it someone that actually knows education, or is it like a politician that figured out what fake rigor should actually look like, and then we're going to push, whatever that is.
Tracy writes, we haven't been given any guidance or expectations yet. We were told to make packets and come up with 3 weeks of paper pencil work for students at the beginning of this. No new direction yet. I supplement with stuff online for those who have access, Zoom quizzes, etc. So how do you get the paper pencil stuff to them, Tracy?
Yeah.
She'll answer that. That's my buddy. But even that is like that work. It's like, how do we make it meaningful right now, right? So like, how are we actually making this meaningful? Or does it look like, hey, our school did this. Like, our school is holding students accountable, and we're being very academically rigorous still, and we are holding students to a high degree. It's like, but are we really, or are we just making it look like that? And so the beauty,
I think that's causing so much stress for them too. The kids, I'm finding, I've got a 21-year-old and a 24-year-old. The 21-year-old knows apps but doesn't know computers. And I think the high schoolers and everybody below that, if I ask him to find a file on his computer, he can't even find it.
Yeah.
He can maneuver an app. So trying to get these students to upload a document or take a picture and upload it, it's really just a nightmare. And so I just make it easy, do video chats and learn in different ways. I just told one of my neighborhood people, the daughter was very stressed out, given tons of packets, hours worth of work. And I said, just get a book and read. Just go read. And if she can get anything out of this, love learning, love reading, go explore. Get rid of the stress.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The end. I mean, I think it's that.
Right.
How can, like, we make learning this really complicated thing when it's really like, if you are really reading a book, right? And so if you're reading a book and you're actually annotating it, like, you don't know a word and you just look it up on your phone, ask Google Home, ask Alexa what the phone, or now Alexa's going to listen to me in the other room, but ask what that word means, look up that quote, underline something that was interesting to you. Like, it's those sorts of actual critical thinking skills that are like, that's all learning really is. Like, sure, there's other subject matter, whether you're taking physics or algebra or whatever, that can be more complicated in this time. But if we just have kids reading, writing, and thinking critically every single day, I think that we get through this, because this isn't the end, right? Like in a year or so, I don't know how long this goes on, but this isn't like a rest of our lives kind of thing. It's this sort of hiccup. And it makes me think of every prison movie I've ever seen where somebody's been in prison and some people made the best out of it. And like Andy Dufresne was like starting libraries and teaching people to read. And then other prison movies where people were just like sitting there miserable and alone in the dark. And it's like, how are you going to make the best of your prison time? Like, what are we doing now? We're all in the same boat. And I think some students, you know, to be honest, have been handing in work that's been better than the stuff I get in school, because there aren't any distractions, because they can do it whenever they want, because they can get enough sleep and eat enough food and then do work. And that's been
while they're doing their work.
Yeah, it's like they have
Without
time.
sneaking it.
There's not 29 other knuckleheads like goofing around in the class. They're like actually able to focus on something.
Yeah. Okay, you know what? That's a very optimistic note to end this Zoom on. I want to thank everybody for joining us. It's an hour. We've been on here an hour, and Zoom have apparently taken off the 40-minute limit. So I'm going to make this into a movie and put it up on Facebook, CJ, and we can share it. And I learned a lot today, and just talking together with teachers from all over the world really, really, I don't know, I really enjoyed it. And with CJ's final closing there, that was just
ta-da. You're welcome.
Thanks a lot, everybody. So good luck with figuring this out, and maybe we'll Zoom again sometime and see how we're getting on in a few weeks.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Adele. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.